Hey guys, welcome back, and this is the video for 10.1 where we really start getting into some of this measurement stuff. So I already have the title up there for you to put in your math notebook. We're going to talk a little bit about measurement first, and then we're going to jump into customary length. Remember, customary is what the United States uses. And that's actually where we're going to start, is comparing customary to metric, the metric system. Okay, so I'm just going to make a little T-chart here, like that. So the customary is what we use in the US. Pardon my bad handwriting, it's hard to write on my computer screen. And the other thing about customary units is that there's no real pattern to it. It's just kind of, you learn what each one is. You know, we know gallons and we know feet and miles and that kind of stuff, but there's no pattern to how they connect or how to move, you know, 1 foot versus 2 feet versus 3 feet. But with the metric system, first of all, it's what most of the world uses. And there is a pattern for the metric system. It follows a pattern, which is super handy. And it increases and decreases by steps of 10. So when we looked at the show what you know in the last video, and we did this thing, that was moving up and down, increasing and decreasing by steps of 10. That's what the metric system does. So once you kind of get that wrapped around your head, the metric system becomes a lot easier. Go back here. I want you to finish writing this in your notebook, and then we'll move on. So if you need to pause the video, do that. I'm going to continue on. And I think just looking at my notes for this one, that this is going to be another 2-part video, or I'll have one video for the notes and then one video for the questions from the book that I'll go over with you. Okay? All right, moving on. Second page here. First of all, we're going to talk about customary length, which is what was the title, part of our title for this lesson. And so we need to know what length is. And we talked a little bit about it in the last video, and I'm sure you already know what it is. But length is just measuring how long something is. Okay, so we use tape measures and we use rulers and we use miles and that kind of stuff to measure how long things are. And so these are the customary units of length. So customary is the system that we use in America, and a unit is just kind of a name. So this is like customary names of length, and we're familiar with these. We measure in a foot or with feet, and we abbreviate that FT. We have inch or inches. Oh, now this is being silly. Which is abbreviated IN. We have 1 yard or many yards, which is abbreviated YD. And then we have mile or miles, which is abbreviated MI. Okay? Keep this handy and remember that it's here because we're going to be using this quite a bit for our lesson today when we get into our book. Okay, and then I'm just going to write down the amounts that are in each one because we're going to be referring back to that as well. So in 1 foot, there are 12 inches. In 1 yard, there are 3 feet. And then we measure miles in either feet or in yards. So there's 5,280 feet in 1 mile, or there's 1,760 yards in 1 mile. Okay, this is going to be really important for you to keep handy as well. And it's actually going to be in your book, but when we get further down the road, if you need to come back to this, now we have it written somewhere where you can find it. Okay? The whole lesson today is going to talk about how we move between these measurements: feet, inches, yards, miles. So it's basically would be something like, if I have 6 feet, how many inches is that? If I have 36 inches, how many yards is that? You know, that kind of stuff. Going between one unit and the other is what we're going to be focusing on today. We call moving between units converting or conversion. Okay, so when we convert, that just means we're changing from one unit to a different unit. People who work in construction use this a lot, where they have to know, you know, how many feet and inches there is in a space so that they know how much either paint to get or flooring to buy or whatever. And so those things are sold usually by foot or by square foot or by yards. And so if you're measuring with a tape measure, that gives you inches, right? And so if you're measuring and you have a room that's 86 inches long, well, I don't know how many feet that is. So that's where conversion comes in handy. It's also really important for painters. Like I said, if you have a wall that's 86 inches long and 1 gallon gives you so many feet of paint coverage, then that's going to help you know how many gallons of paint to buy. So being able to convert between units of length is really important. Okay, so the first thing we have to know when we convert between units is which unit is the bigger unit and which unit is the smaller unit. So we're going to write that in our notes so that we don't forget. To convert between units, you have to know which unit is bigger and which unit, is smaller. Now the reason we need to know that is because in order to convert, we're going to either be multiplying or dividing by the base number of the smaller unit. And what I mean by that is, in a second, the base number would be how many of the small unit fit into one of the big unit. So if we just look at this example here, this would be our base unit, inches, and then our base number would be 12. There are 12 inches in 1 foot. Inches we know is smaller than feet. An inch is like this and a foot is like this. So since inches is the small one, we always look at the smaller unit, the base number that goes into one of the bigger unit. So if we were looking between feet and miles, which one is smaller? Feet. So if I had like 6 miles, then I would have to do something with this number right here, because that's the number for the smaller unit. Okay, so keep that in mind as we go along, and you'll be seeing what we're going to do with that too as we keep going. So make sure you write that in your notes. Pause the video if you need more time, as always. Okay, for this next part here, I'm going to do a little down arrow from our last point, but I was out of room. So when you convert, or when converting, from big to small. So going back a couple slides when I was looking at feet to inches, when I go from big to small, multiply by the base number of the smaller unit. And you might be thinking, if I'm going from big to small, why would I want to multiply? Because when we multiply, things get bigger, right? And that's absolutely right, and that's what we actually want to happen, because think about a ruler. Let me grab it here. When you think about a ruler, this is 1 foot. But how many inches make up that foot? 12. So lots of little units make up one big unit. That's why we multiply. In this example, we'll just use feet and inches. If I had 2 feet and I wanted to know how many inches that is, I would multiply by the base number of the smaller unit, because feet is bigger than inches. So I need to multiply, and the base number is 12. There's 12 inches in 1 foot. So then I will multiply 2 times 12. There's 24 inches in 2 feet. So if I had another ruler, then I would have 24 inches, right? And we could count them up. We know that there's lots of inches inside of 2 feet because inches are small. They take up less space than bigger units like feet. So we need lots of littles to make one big. And let's actually write that down. You need lots of littles to make one big. And what I mean by that is you need lots of little units to make one big unit. That's why we multiply. There's lots of inches in 2 feet. Make sense? Okay. Now, what if we were going the other way? What if those were flip-flopped? Let's take a peek at that. This is another down arrow here. Maybe. When converting from small to big, okay, now think about what we just did with big to small. When we multiply to get lots of littles, if we're going from small to big, what would we do instead? If you said divide, you were right. We divide, again, by, let's see how I said it over here, by the base number of the smaller unit. Okay, so let's take our example then. I now have 24 inches, and I want to know how many feet that is. And because you guys are 5th graders, I know you're thinking, Mrs. Graber, I already know it's 2 feet, right? But let's find out why. Let's find out why. If I'm going from small to big, we're going to write another little reminder down here. If I'm going from small to big, I have lots of littles, and I know it's not going to make as many bigs. So few bigs, let's see, sorry about my pen being selfish, make lots of littles.